Okay, so we're gonna start this interview. So if you just want to start by saying your name and maybe where you're from and just kind of general information about you.
Okay, I'm Lindsay Garone. I'm from Norton, Massachusetts. It's in Eastern Mass. I'm 22 years old, and I go to the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I'm a senior right now.
So could you just talk a little bit about, I guess, what Greek life is like on campus, just in general, like basic information, and like what your experience with it has been.
Okay, I joined Greek life when I was a freshman, so that was 2012, the fall of 2012. And I really didn't know anything about Greek life, especially on this campus. What I had only heard was things that my parents had told me. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go Greek or anything, but I ended up going through sorority recruitment because my friend from freshman year really wanted to go, so I decided to give it a shot. And it was nothing like I was expecting it to be, but that was from the perspective of somebody who had no idea what they were getting into. It was very intense, I guess. What was it, like 3 or 4 days of basically like speed dating, I guess. We started out, it was an info session, and we sat in this big room, and the vice president of the Pan-Hellenic recruitment talked to us about what the process was going to be like. And I just remember being very overwhelmed by all of the girls who were going through recruitment with me and all of the organizations, just not knowing anything about any of them. There were 7 sororities at the time, and we sat through all the presentations of the different chairs of recruitment from each sorority, and then we got to go and meet and talk to girls from all of them. They all had a table set up in the room that we were in, and I knew I wanted to go and talk to Alpha Chi Omega because my mom was also an Alpha Chi Omega, so that was part of the reason that I was looking to go Greek, because I had heard my mom's stories about it, and it sounded fun, but I really didn't know like if it was something that I wanted to do. But because UMass had an Alpha Chi chapter on campus, I was more inclined to go through, and I was interested in them, so that was one of the first places I went to talk to. And I just remember being very nervous, and I actually met, the first person I met in Alpha Chi Omega happened to be the girl who ended up being my big sister in the chapter, so that was really cool. And the rest of the days of recruitment, the first one was just a whirlwind. We went and we talked to each chapter for 30 minutes, I think. We got to go and sit down and talk with a few girls, but I just remember it being very overwhelming. We walked in, and there was a lot of cheering and clapping and just loud singing, and I was not really expecting that because I was just expecting to go and like talk to people in a normal setting, but it was definitely not like that. And I didn't really know how I was supposed to act either, so I think I was more shy. I wasn't really trying to sell myself. I was more trying to listen to what they had to say and respond appropriately, rather than me taking the lead in the conversation, which in retrospect was not probably the best way I should have gone about it. I probably should have been a little more outgoing, but I was nervous and I didn't really know what was expected of me. So that was the first day, and then the second day, I don't even remember what the second day was like. I think it was house tours day or something. The first day was the philanthropy round, so we learned about every chapter's philanthropy and got to know what they do in the community and to raise money for their particular charity, which was really cool to see. And I think the second day was house tours day, and I went and saw only 2 houses, I believe. Out of the 7 chapters at UMass, only 5 of them are housed, and I only went and saw 2 houses because throughout the process it's like a mutual selection thing. You say what chapters you like at the end of the rounds, and they also say if they liked you. um, so yeah, I was invited to go look at a couple houses, which was cool. I was very interested in seeing where the girls lived and what they were like and all that stuff. And then the third day was skit day, I think. It was skit day. And that one was cool because each chapter put on a little skit, obviously, which was fun to see because it got to show like a more fun, silly side of the girls rather than just sitting and talking. And after a while, talking and talking and talking to the same people over and over again can get a little repetitive and tedious and also hard to like set yourself apart. But that day was fun. The fourth day was preference ceremony. So I went to 2 preferences, and that was more of a serious day. They do a little ceremony, and they're really trying to sell you on their chapter, because if you make it to the preference round, they basically have said that they would like you to be in their chapter, so they're really trying to show you the best side of them and also want to see your best side. But that one is more about them trying to sell themselves to you as opposed to you trying to sell yourself to them. And at the end of that, I went and I made my final decision, wrote my top choice of sorority on whatever they tell you to write it on, put it in the computer or something, and then you just wait until you get your bid the next day. And I got a bid from Alpha Chi Omega, which was my number 1 choice, and it was very exciting because my mom was also an Alpha Chi, and I just felt like I had the best experience with that chapter. So yeah, that was basically it.
So you said that there were 7 sororities at the time. Has that changed, or like what is your experience with that?
It's currently changing actually. Not this year, but starting next fall, there will be 8 sororities. The university is currently adding an 8th chapter, which is Tri Sigma. So they're in the process of getting them colonized, and I don't really know the details of that, but
so Greek life can tend to have like a negative reputation of partying and stuff like that. Like, have you experienced that, or anything like that?
There's definitely partying in the Greek community here at UMass, but it's not anything different than what the rest of the community does, the rest of the UMass community does. Like, there will be frat parties, and there will be house parties, and the same kind of situations go for either of them. Like, you could go to a fraternity party and dance and drink, but you could go to a regular house party and do the same thing. So I feel like the fraternity party scene gets a bad rap just because of popular culture and the media and everything, and just historically they've been known to party a lot. But honestly, on this campus, it's either you're partying at a frat or you're partying at a house, and it's not really going to be different. The only difference is if you're partying at a frat, you're probably with people who you know in the Greek community, and if you're at a house party, it could be just random people walking in from the street.
And you also talked about philanthropy, that you like learned about that during recruitment. Does your chapter have a specific philanthropy, or like the Greek community, or what does the Greek community do with philanthropy?
Alpha Chi Omega has their national philanthropy, which is domestic violence awareness. So we do a lot with that, raising awareness and raising money to go to local women's shelters, and there's an on-campus the Center for Women and Community. So that's what our chapter specifically focuses on. And raising awareness is one of the biggest parts, I think, for that, because that's just not a very big issue that people talk about because it's kind of sensitive. And each chapter on campus, fraternities and sororities, has their own designated philanthropy, and we all support each other, go to each other's events, and donate money to each other, and post about each other's events just to get the word out there to the entire community, not just the Greek community. But one thing that the entire Greek community does take part in is U-Dance, which is a dance marathon that they do every year to raise money for Bay State Children's Hospital. And that is something that goes on all over the country. Universities and high schools all over do that. So that's a really fun event because you get to raise money for the kids, and that's cool.
Have you ever gone to that event?
Yeah.
Do you have any memories there?
I've been to that event for all 4 years, and this past year is the most memorable. Oh, actually, no, I only went 3 years because I was abroad for junior year, I believe. But this past year was the most memorable for me because it was, in my memory, it was at the biggest scale that I'd ever seen it, and it was just the most fun looking. There was a lot of things happening. There was balloons and beach balls bouncing all over the place, and people were just having a really good time, it seemed like, at this one. And my favorite part of that is when the kids run in and you get to spend time with them and you get to see the people that you're actually helping, which I thought was really, really cool. And you raise a lot of money for the hospital, which is great.
And you also said your chapter does philanthropy events. So what do you have any special memories of that, or just what are they like? Are they different than other chapters? Does everyone kind of do the same thing?
No, they're definitely different. Our chapter actually used to do an event called Mr. Alpha Chi, which it was my favorite event, but I understand why we did stop doing that. Mr. Alpha Chi was essentially a male beauty pageant where we would get mostly fraternity men, but it was open to the entire campus community. You didn't have to be in a fraternity to participate. And they would sign up to do this, and they would be escorted onto the stage with a sister of our sorority, and there was a talent portion, a swimsuit portion, an evening wear portion, I think, and questions, a typical beauty pageant style. And that was always really funny just because the guys are very goofy with it. They make their talents kind of silly, and they answer silly questions, and some of them came out with floaties when they do the swimsuit portion. But this past year, we actually stopped doing that just because of the whole beauty pageant stigma, and the values that are portrayed by beauty pageants don't really match up with the values of Alpha Chi Omega. So we have stopped doing that, but this year, instead of that, we had a volleyball tournament, Volley Against Violence, which was actually really cool and really successful. We had teams from all different chapters and all different organizations sign up. It was teams of 6, and it was just a tournament ongoing from a few hours. I'm not sure how long, but that was really fun because we got a big crowd gathered around one of the volleyball courts in the residence areas, and we sold donuts, also to raise money, which was fun. That was a cool event. And the most powerful event I think that we do is our Luminary event, which is, it's called Luminary because we have these bags that we decorate with domestic violence statistics and figures and just uplifting quotes and stuff, and then you put a small fake candle in it so they don't burn, and they glow. And so it's luminary. But at that event, we usually have speakers come from some of the local women's shelters, and they talk about domestic violence and who it affects, what the statistics are, how to get help. They give resources, and it's really powerful. And the most powerful part of that is we have an actual survivor come and tell their story, which can get very emotional, but it's also very powerful because you don't really know what domestic violence is like until you hear the story of somebody who's been involved in it. So that is an event where we don't necessarily raise as much money as our other events, but that's an important one because it really gets the word out there, and it shows the community what we are working for and what we are trying to fix in the society. So that's probably my favorite one overall. just because it's the most meaningful. And other chapters events, they're different than that. They each do their own type of event, because if everybody did the same event, that would just get very boring and repetitive. Some cool ones are Sigma Kappa sorority does Sigma Stacks, which is they do pancakes, so they make pancakes, and you pay $5 and it's all you can eat. You can put toppings on it. That's always fun. Who doesn't like pancakes? And there's other food ones. I think there's an ice cream one. There's a basketball tournament for one of them. I can't remember them all right now, but
so I guess going off of that, do you have any like good memories of like being with other chapters or other fraternities? Like, just I guess like what was your favorite memory like within the whole Greek community, not just your own chapter? And like, do chapters like mingle with each other, or is it just kind of like everyone keeps to themselves?
No, chapters definitely mingle. And we do that in different ways. We have socials with other chapters, both fraternities and sororities. We've done a couple of social events with sororities where we saw one of them. We saw the Not Ready for Bedtime Players, which is an organization on campus that does. They do like sexual. That sounds bad. They do. They like. It's like a comedy show, but they're trying to teach safe sex practices, but in a funny way. So that one was fun. And some other events, like fraternities that we've hung out with. One time we went on a hayride / maze thing with them in the fall. One chapter, and what else? Not sure, but we definitely mingle with other chapters outside of a party setting.
So I've heard that one time that you or chapters will mingle with each other is during Greek Week. So can you tell me about Greek Week and kind of what that is at UMass, and what your favorite part of it was, if you have any like really awesome memories, or like what really stands out to you?
Yeah, Greek Week is probably the most fun week of the entire year, because you get paired up with, well, the sororities get paired up with a couple of fraternities, because there are a lot more fraternities on campus than sororities. So you're usually paired up with 2 or 3 chapters. But it's a whole week of different events, like sporting events. There's dodgeball, basketball, volleyball. There used to be a relay race. There was not a relay race this year. And there's like social media challenges. And there's philanthropy challenges too. Like there's Can Castle, where you have to build a castle or a figure or something out of a bunch of cans, and then all the cans get donated. And there's Penny Wars, and all the money raised from that gets donated to different philanthropies too. But the most fun event during Greek Week is lip sync, which is basically a giant performance that your team choreographs and puts together based on the theme. And each Greek Week is a different theme. This past year was TV shows, and we were the show Friends. So the entire lip sync dance was supposed to be about the show Friends, and we had the characters, we had a whole storyline, there was a video that went along with it. So each dance we would play a little clip of the video and then come out and dance, and you would have to lip sync, because that's the name of the game, I guess. And it's just really fun. It's essentially just a giant, like, it's kind of like a cheer performance, but not nearly at that level. But people get really into it. People do stunts, and they do flips and tricks and crazy dancing, and the characters can be really eccentric sometimes, but that is definitely my favorite memory from Greek Week. I've done lip sync all 3 years that I was here for Greek Week. And that's also just a really fun week too, because you definitely get to bond a lot with different chapters, not even just your team chapter, the chapters who are on your team, but when you're at the events cheering on your teams, you're with other members from other sororities and fraternities, and it's just like a huge community, and you just realize how close and connected Greek life is during that week because everybody's there having fun for the same reasons, just like having a good time together. So that's my favorite week of the whole year.
Do people get very competitive during that? Like, what's the competition like?
Yeah, people can get really competitive. It's not always like fun, fluffy. Everybody loves each other. Especially for like dodgeball and football and lip sync too. People get really competitive with that. But sportsmanship is factored in, so we were trying to be better about that this year. But definitely within your own team, you're always like, oh, we got to take down the red team or the blue team, and can't let them win, can't let them beat us in this event. So there's definitely some competitiveness, and for that week, you might not be friends with some people who you're normally friends with.
So, and the very first question I asked you, you said that you met your big sister, like, on the first day of recruitment. So I was just wondering how do you get a big sister? Does everyone get a big sister? What's that experience like? And I guess just in general, like, what is, like, being a new member like? So that's kind of a two-part question.
Okay. Yeah. So being a new member is basically the time where you're learning all the ins and outs of the sorority or the organization that you're joining, I guess. You learn the history, you learn the values, and just like everything that's important to know to be an initiated member. And during that period, you get your big sister, brother, whoever. And yeah, every new member gets a big. And it's usually over the course for sororities, at least for Alpha Chi, this was my experience. We made a list, the new members made a list of all the girls that we thought that we connected with, and we had to write, like, rank them, I guess. Not really rank them, but just say who your top choices would be. And they did the same thing, and then we were matched up. And then for, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks, the bigs knew who their little sisters were, but the little sisters did not know who their big sisters were, and they would leave clues on your dorm room doors, or just like on your Facebook wall anonymously, giving you little hints, either pointing you in the right direction or the wrong direction of who they could be. So that was fun because you got to like come home to a surprise every once in a while. Like I think one time I got a sign on my door and I think it was a little stocking, like a little Christmas stocking filled with candy, and it was just a little like rhyme type clue that said something about my big could be in this family or whatever, because within the sorority, whatever big sister you get, you're in a family. In my sorority, personally, I was in the turtle family, but there was the Mickey family, the lion family, the monkey family, the duck family. There's probably a few more that I'm forgetting, but so that was fun. She put on the sign, like, you could be a Mickey or a lion or a turtle or something like that. I don't know, it rhymed. But it was just fun because it gave me a little bit of a hint, but also, like, it could have totally thrown me off to, like, not know who she was and not know what family she was in. So that went on for, like, about a week or two, and I got these clues every few days. And I remember I guessed who my big was, but during one of our new member meetings, the person who ran them was our new member educator, and she was going around asking everybody if we knew who they thought their big was, and I said who my big ended up being, and she completely shut me down. She was like, oh no, I'm sorry, I know you guys are really close, but she's definitely not your big, and I'm really sorry. And I was just like, oh, okay, like, but I was so excited the day that I got her as my big. It was really cool because we walked into this giant room and there was just a bunch of boxes on the floor, and each box had our name, like whoever's name on it. And we walked over and they just popped out of the box like under a blanket or something like that, and it was so exciting because you had no idea like who it was going to be. And then they brought us over to a table of all these crafts and snacks and just like all this stuff, way too much stuff. They spoiled us that day. But that was a really fun day because you got to find out who your essentially one of your new best friends in the sorority was. So that's really cool.
So before when you were talking about recruitment, you said like on the last day was preference day, and then you like found out which sorority you were in. So, like, did you like how do you like meet them, or like what goes on that day?
On preference?
No, like the day after preference.
Oh, the day after preference.
And like, what was your experience like with that day?
Oh, that bid day. How could I forget about bid day? That day's really fun because you get to go to the Greek office or whatever, and you get your bid. You find out what sorority you're in, and then that night you show up, and they give you a T-shirt from whatever sorority you chose whatever, and you are all like herded into one small area, and then they like open the doors and you run in and you get to run to all your new sisters, basically like I don't know, like a homecoming type thing. It's really cool because you just see them all standing there, and you're so excited to go run to them, and they're so excited for you to come to them, and you take a lot of pictures, and you meet all the people in your new member class. And I was still very overwhelmed at this point. I was a very shy person my freshman year, but I just remember being so happy because I was in my mom's sorority, and I was also with one of my best friends from home. We went through together, but we weren't trying to end up in the same sorority, but I was just really happy that I had her there with me because otherwise I would have been way too overwhelmed. And then after that whole big like group thing, each sorority takes their new members to a separate room or their house or wherever, and they do like an event or an activity. And I remember I did not attend my first bid day event because I had my very first test of my college career the next day, and I was really upset about it because I think they went and played laser tag at some place, I think the mall, and I just remember being like, I can't go play laser tag with all my new sisters, I'm not going to know anybody, I'm not going to have any friends in the sorority. Obviously that was not the case, but I was very sad that I had to go home and study for my exam. But it was still a really exciting day. It was cool.
So oftentimes in movies and stuff, you always see like these big, beautiful sorority houses. Did you live in a house?
Yeah, no. Alpha Chi does not have a house at UMass. We used to have a house, but we had to give it up because of financial reasons and other circumstances. But honestly, I don't think that made a difference in my time at Alpha Chi. It might have made a little bit of a difference because I never really got to live with a bunch of sisters, but I've lived with sisters. Like, I currently live with 2 of my sisters right now, and that's awesome because I get to see them every day. They're my best friends. But I feel like not having a house kind of made it better because we had to have our meetings. We had meetings twice a week, just in different academic buildings on campus. But it made those meetings even more special because we got to go and see our sisters at a designated time twice a week, every single week, rather than like if I lived in the house, I feel like I probably would have been like, oh, I see these people all the time, now I have to go to a meeting with them, now I have to go do this. Like, I don't know, I just feel like the time it was more quality time, what I got, because I wasn't constantly surrounded by everybody who was in my chapter. And definitely it made seeing people around campus more exciting. And just like going out together was more fun because you could all meet up somewhere and get ready together and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, sorry to jump around a little bit, but you were just talking about how when you got a big, did you ever get a little or like a little sister, or what was that like? Was that a good experience for you?
Yeah, the next year, my sophomore year, I got my first little sister, and that was actually really cool for me because that was the first year that I ever participated in recruitment from the other side, which is a completely different experience. it's weird because you go from seeing, not knowing what to expect at all, and then going through it and seeing what it's like, and then being on the other side and knowing everything that the people you talked to the year before knew. So it's very interesting to see the different sides of it, and to be like, to know the things you're supposed to ask about, the things that you should and should not discuss. It's very interesting. I wish I had known all that stuff when I had gone through. But what was interesting about my experience with getting a little was that the girl who became my little, I had actually known from home. Our families were family friends, and she was going through recruitment, and she wasn't really sure if she wanted to go through either. And I remember just talking to her briefly, very briefly. We weren't very close. Before this, we just hung out whenever our families would hang out, and that was more often when we were a lot younger. So I just knew that she was going through, because I said, like, you should go through, you should try it out, just give it a shot, you never know. And she ended up doing that, and I told our recruitment chair person that I knew this girl going through, and that, like, if I could talk to her at some point throughout the process, that I would really like to do that. And she was good about that, and we ended up getting matched up to talk, because they kind of try to match you up with people who they think you'll get along with, or they think you'll have things in common with. So that was cool that I got to talk to her, and I actually got to talk to her on preference night. So I was trying to sell Alpha Chi to her from my perspective, and from being a legacy with my mom. That's what it's called, being a legacy. So I was just telling her my experience, why I loved the chapter that I was in, and what she would love about it if she came and joined. And I just remember the day that she accepted her bid, I was so excited, because I was just like, wow, this girl is so cool. This girl is so fun and so cute and all this stuff, and I've known her forever, and it's just so exciting that she's now in this sorority with me. And during her new member period, I think we had a social one night with a fraternity, and I just remember one of the brothers coming up to me and saying, hey, you know Shauna? And I was like, yeah, I know her. Like, we go way back or whatever. And he said to me, she really wants you to be her big. And I was more excited than I could even tell you, because I honestly thought she was, like, the coolest person. She is so funny, so sweet, so pretty, and so nice, and just, like, everything that I would want to be. And I was just so flattered that she wanted me to be her big sister. And so obviously I put her as my first choice, and we got paired up. And I just remember trying to write her all the clues like my big did, and I was like, wow, I'm not good at this at all. I don't know what to do. And I remember going and trying to leave a clue on her outside of her door, and I can't remember. I don't think I texted her roommate or anything. I think I just kind of showed up and hoped that she wasn't there. And I ran to her door, and I dropped the clue off, and I ran back down the stairs, and I think somebody saw me drop it off. Somebody in the room across from her room or next to her room, like, opened the door as I was leaving something for her, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna know. They're gonna tell her. She's gonna know who it is. Oh gosh, it's all ruined. And I wanted her to have a surprise like everybody else, because it was kind of obvious that the two of us were going to end up together, but I didn't want it to be as obvious. I wanted her to be able to have the experience of the surprise of a big. So I was trying to throw her off, but after that happened, I was like, oh, she's gonna know. She definitely knows who it is now. And a couple days later, I actually found out that she was actually in the study room, or the common room of her building, when I did that. I think I thought she was actually at class, but she wasn't. She was actually in the building, like, just a few feet away from where I was. Didn't see me, but somebody did tell her, like, that somebody came and dropped something off at her door. But yeah, she wasn't really that surprised. She knew the whole time that I was going to end up as her big, but it was still really exciting. And honestly, that is probably one of my favorite memories, getting her as a little, because we are now closer than anybody could ever imagine. just like so close, and I'm actually going to visit her in Amsterdam. She's studying abroad right now. So I'm really excited about that. And then the next semester, I actually took a second little, which was kind of unexpected because I wasn't really planning on taking a second little after taking one the semester before, but I couldn't help it. I just fell in love with this girl, and I had to take her, and she was just so perfect. She's just like the most put together person ever, and she's from California, and she was just so cool. Like, she had such a different perspective of everything because she came from California to a New England school, and I just thought she was so interesting, and we just got along really well. So taking both of my littles was a really cool experience. Yeah, I'm very close with both of them, and they are both actually gone right now. My second little was a senior, or is my age, so she was a senior at the same time as me, but she ended up graduating early and she went back to California. But just recently we had our formal, and she surprised me, and she came home, and I remember I was just like sitting on the floor of my apartment doing my nails, waiting to like get ready for formal, and the door opens and somebody comes in and yells big, and I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense because neither of them are here. Neither of my littles are here. And she walks in, and I was stunned. I just remember like staring at her being like, this is not happening. She's here right now. So definitely taking both of my littles was the best thing I probably ever did in Alpha Chi. And then they also took littles. So my family is now huge because I have 2 littles, and my first little has 1 little of her own, and my second little has 3 littles of her own because she's crazy. And now their littles also have littles, so that makes me a great grand big. So my family's huge, and even though both my littles are gone now, I am still super close with all of my grand littles and great grand littles and great grand littles, and it's really awesome because I feel like I never would have gotten the same kind of connections and the same closeness to all these people if I hadn't had them in my family. Like, I would have known them definitely, but I definitely got to build a stronger relationship with these girls because they were in my family, and I'm so lucky because they are just some of the coolest people I've ever met.
So do you have any other, like, things you want to say about Greek life, or, just, like, any stories or anything else you think that would add to this history?
Actually, I didn't talk about, the executive board at all, which each sorority has, like, a board of executives, like the president, vice presidents, and all that stuff, and I was lucky enough to be able to serve on our e-board. I was vice president of membership programming, which means I was essentially responsible for planning sisterhood events and like bonding events and events for seniors, like senior banquets, senior gifts, all that kind of stuff, which I give all of the credit to that experience for my personal like development. I didn't word that very well. I feel like that experience really gave me a taste of what it was going to be like to have a job, I guess. Even though I wasn't paid for it and I was still in school and it wasn't a full-time thing, that responsibility and like having to be essentially a leader for the chapter really, really changed me and helped me grow in ways that I don't think I ever would have if I didn't have that experience, because you have to be a role model for the rest of the chapter because they look up to you. Not in a bad way, it's a great thing because you want to put your best foot forward and you want to set a good example for the rest of the chapter, and you want to do things that make the chapter better, and you want the chapter to appreciate the things that you're doing for them, and you want to inspire the rest of the chapter to do the same. So yeah, I put that on my resume because that gave me so much more confidence in myself and in my abilities to organize events and speak publicly, because each week at our chapter meetings we would stand up and give our executive report. points to the whole chapter. And before that, I was never really good at public speaking or confident in speaking to large amounts of people, because I'm a fairly small person with a fairly quiet voice, so I've never really learned how to like project. But having to stand up in front of 80 to 100 people every week, it brings you out of your comfort zone, but in a good way. So all of my interview skills and my job skills and everything like that, I credit that to being on the executive board of Alpha Chi. Definitely, if anybody is going to go Greek, I would definitely recommend being in some type of leadership position, because that is something that will help you for the rest of your life.
Do you have anything else you want to add or say or talk about?
Can't think of anything. I guess just that Greek life is different than what people see in the media. My biggest pet peeve is when people say I paid for my friends, because I definitely did not do that. I paid to be in an organization for sure, and I paid to go to these meetings and have all these opportunities, but I did not pay for the friendships and the relationships that I made here. I did not ever think that that was a thing. Like, I never went into this thinking like, I don't know how to make friends, I'm going to go buy them, essentially. No, I would not change a thing about my experience in Greek life or in Alpha Chi Omega. Every penny was worth it. If I did not do this, I can 110% guarantee I would not have had as great of a 4 years that I did. And it's very it's very sad that this is my last year, but I'm very excited to see where the rest of the sisters that are currently in Alpha Chi go, where the chapter's going, and where Greek life in general at UMass is going, because it's changing rapidly, and we can see it every year. Tri Sigma's coming in the fall. I'm sure there's always new fraternities coming. But yeah, just don't believe what you hear in the media.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.